In this tutorial, I'll show you how to go from beginner to pro in Zoho Books. Now, I'm Drew Brockbank, owner of Brockbank Consulting, and I've set up over 150 Zoho systems. And in this video, I'm going to take you step by step through using and setting up Zoho Books according to best practices. We're going to start off with a quick overview of Zoho Books. That way you get a good understanding of how things work from end to end. This diagram is showing that. Once we finish the quick overview, we're going to slow down. We're going to go over these things in more detail so that you have a better understanding of how things should be set up and how Zoho Books should be used. So you can see here that we're going to start within Zoho CRM and work our way into Zoho Books. And we're going to use an example for today of a company that sells building materials to cities for them to build bridges, okay? So that is not most likely your business or your situation, but this example will give you a really good understanding of how everything works together. And then you can translate what I say to your specific situation and organization. So with that, we're inside of Zoho CRM. Now, if you don't know anything about Zoho CRM, it's where you keep track of sales. So for example, if I was selling to American Fork City, which is the city I live in, and they were building a large bridge, they're going to need material, okay? So let's say I had a relationship with the city and they're like, Drew, we want some building material. Well, I'd first create this deal, okay? And it could first come in as a lead, like a form submission on my site. Then I could create a deal from that. And you also notice that contacts and accounts, it's critical that contacts and accounts from Zoho CRM are typically integrated with Zoho Finance, okay? When I say Zoho Finance, I'm talking about Zoho Books and Zoho Inventory, which we'll talk a little bit more about. So accounts and contacts can sync with Zoho Books from Zoho CRM. You don't have to sync all those contacts. Sometimes you just want your billing contacts and accounts to come over. But in this case, American Fork City said, Drew, how much is it going to cost? And I say, let me get a quote and send it over to you. So I can generate this quote. I'll do a demo quote real quick. We'll do demo, American Fork, and I'll just select, we'll pretend that this right here is an item that I sell to people who are building bridges. And I'm going to keep this really simple just so we can get a quick overview done and then we can go over things in more detail. So I can create the quote within the Zoho CRM native quotes module. Okay, that's totally fine. And then oftentimes what I do for clients who have robust quoting needs is I'll create this integration that says convert to sales order in Zoho Books. So you'll notice here, the best place to go from the quotes record is to the sales order. So we started in the deal that represents the opportunity to sell. Then we worked our way into quotes, which is what we're in right now, right here. But the quote is just saying, this is how much it should cost. They're not ready to buy from me yet. They just want to see how much it's going to cost before I do it, okay? I could also send the quote along with a proposal, which shows more detailed, more specifics on how this supplies is going to fit into their bridge project, just so you know, you could do quotes or a proposal, and you could automatically merge information into a document. I'm not going to show you that because that's more of a CRM thing than it is a Zoho Books thing, but just know you can do that. So the quote is now saying, hey, this is how much it's going to cost for the material that you require. And you can see that that is outlined right here, okay? We put $0, but you can put whatever you want. Also, what you can do is you can go into the deal, and from the deal record, you can actually jump into Zoho Books through the integration. So here is the Zoho Finance integration. Right now, I have an integration with Zoho Finance to push my accounts over, to sync my contacts over, and my accounts over. And I also have the estimates integrated as well. So if I create an estimate here, it will pop up inside of Zoho Books, and this is its native integration, meaning Zoho built this integration. It works really well. Also, I can just start with creating a sales order, okay? If they're like, we're going to buy it, just send us a sales order, great. Or I would just create the sales order here. And here's something good to talk about. A sales order is a record of the sale itself, okay? So if you were doing e-commerce, every time someone buys something on your website, it would become a sales order, okay? And a sales order within a B2B context, which is what we're talking about, or what we're talking about is more B2G, business to government, but it works for B2B too. A sales order represents two things. We have the financial commitment, which is their commitment to pay us for what we're supplying them, which is building materials for a bridge. And then we have the packages and shipments. Okay, and those two things represent the physical obligation we have to actually fulfill what we said we were going to sell. If we were selling a service, we don't need to use packages and shipments. Okay, if we were selling a service, we'd actually most likely take this, the fulfillment to provide the service into Zoho projects. Okay, so the sales order has those two. And people ask me, they're like, why are there so many records? Can't we just have one record to represent? We can't, okay? Because you could send 3 or 4 quotes over and one could become a sales order, okay? They might reject the first quote and say, we don't need those materials. And you might have to edit it a couple times and then send a sales order. So because of that, if there can be multiple, you need to have different records, unfortunately, to represent them, which makes things slightly more complicated, but it makes things more robust. So the system is more powerful and better in more situations. So within Zoho Books, we've got customers, right? We can sync those with Zoho CRM if it's relevant to you so that the accounts and the contacts come over. Then you have quotes, which you can also sync. I showed you that custom button I used from the quote in Zoho CRM to bring the quote over here to Zoho Books. Again, if it's relevant, great. If not, it's okay. You can just import your own customers. You can import from your quotes from a spreadsheet or from another system. Same thing goes for sales orders and the other records here. Okay, so the quote is just the promise of what something's going to cost. It's not saying that they're going to buy from you. They just want to check out how much it's going to cost. So you can see here, I built this quote, bridge building material demo 1. Okay, and what to do next here with this quote is send it out. Okay, so once I send it, I can mark it as declined, and I actually already marked this one as accepted. But once you've created the quote, it's time to convert it, okay? And so back to our overview here, once a quote is sent and confirmed, then you can make the sales order. Now, a quick pause here. This is going to be relevant to some of you, not all of you. For example, I don't need it in my business, Brockbank Consulting. I don't need to send over a quote and a sales order. Why do I not need to do that? Because the way my sales process works and the needs of my organization is I just need to send an invoice because that's what people are purchasing from me is a service. So I don't need the sales order because I don't need to track packages. I don't need to track shipments. I don't need people to confirm the price before. They know after the first sales call how much things are going to cost. And so I can just send over the invoice. That's what's relevant to my process. So if you're thinking through this and you're like, this is overkill for what I'm trying to do, that's okay. You only need to use the parts of this system that are relevant to your organization and your own needs. Okay, so I just want to, if that's a concern that you have, I want to address that. Now from here, in our scenario, we're selling bridge building materials to the government, which is American Fork City in this case. And we're going to convert this over to a sales order. And why are we doing this? Because now they want to move forward. They say, confirmed, great, let's get going. We want to buy from you. Now we're going to save and send. So we just converted that to a sales order, and then it gives us a nice little email template. We could change this template for whatever we want. Then I can send it out. I'm going to hit cancel, and then I'm going to say that mark is confirmed so that they have, I'm going to pretend that I sent it over and they say, we've already confirmed it. We're good to go. Great. I've marked it as confirmed because they said they were good to go. Now, if we go back to the overview, from sales orders, we have 2 parts here, okay? We've got the invoice and the payments is the financial obligation. Then we got packages and shipments, which is the physical obligation. We have to send them the thing that they bought, okay? And we're going to go with the invoice flow first. So from here, I can convert the sales order into an invoice, convert to invoice here. Then the nice thing about the invoice is once you send the invoice, they can actually pay through the invoice via credit card. You can even make ACH available as a payment method. There's quite a bit that you can do there. And as a payment processor, because Zoho Books itself is not a payment processor, if you want to hook up your payment processor, I use Stripe as an example. You could use Zoho Payments. That's an alternative there. You can set that up so that once you send this invoice out, you can collect payment from the invoice, which is really nice. It makes things really convenient. Now, I didn't save this invoice because I want to show you, you could actually split this up into 2 different invoices if you wanted to. So when you go to create the invoice, you could potentially say my payment terms for this bridge material is half upfront, half once it's delivered. So you could break this up into 2 payments. We're not going to do that in this case. I just wanted to show you that that is something you could potentially do if you wanted to. Okay, so convert to invoice. You can also do instant invoice. We're going to do convert to invoice here. And then from here, we can choose, this is just a side note, guys. If you have multiple warehouses where you're pulling inventory from, you could mark that here for quantity. And that will bring us into, once we get to this portion here, packages and shipments, I'll talk a little more about how that works within Zoho inventory. So I'm going to save and send. And it gives me another invoice template right here. You can change this template if you want to, and then hit send. Now this is saying we want payment. So in our situation, they accepted the quote. I converted it to a sales order. You don't really need to send the sales order in this situation out from, they're like, I already confirmed it. We're good to go. Great. Then I convert the invoice and I send it over. And in this situation, I'm just going to say, although I could do half upfront, half after, we're just going to do the full amount right here. Okay. So I'm going to mark it as sent. Let's pretend I sent the invoice, and then they've paid. So if they paid via ACH and it didn't get recorded automatically, for example, when I send out invoices in my business and people pay through it, it updates the invoice to paid automatically. But that's not how it works for everybody. So you can go over to record payment, and then you can record the payment and say, how did they pay? Was it a bank transfer? Great. And then you can deposit it to whatever account you want. And we're going to get into chart of accounts and things like that as well. Okay. So we're going to save as paid, and then you can see that is marked paid. And that's where you'll see here that we can go from invoices to payments, because you can allow for invoices to be paid partially, which gets into payments. And that's where you're going to want to integrate with your payment processor. And we'll talk more about how payments work with transactions in your bank as well, and how we can do reconciliation there. Okay, so now we're going to do the other part of the sales order flow, which is packages and shipments. So they just paid for something. I need to send it out to them. Okay, so I need to turn this into a package and into a shipment. So that's where we're going to jump over to Zoho Inventory. Now, Zoho Inventory is not Zoho Books. It's a separate app, but I want to go over it because it's so critical to so many people who need a robust finance system. Okay, so inventory is where it's essentially Zoho Books, except it has a couple more record types. So if we go over into inventory as stock counts, packages, shipments, which is the things we need to do in order to track sending these things out. So you can see here we have American Fork City. We're going to remove this one, and we're going to do one of these from scratch. So you can see that within sales, we have a sales order, and you can see it's synced with Zoho Books. Okay, it shares the same database. Here's the thing. Zoho doesn't assume you're going to use inventory management. So you have to click on it to basically show, hey, I actually need to use these kinds of records. So now that we're looking at the sales order, I can convert this, and I can create this package or shipment. Okay. So that's what's nice about using the sales order, is you can create other things or other records from that, other records from this master sales order. So for example, right here, I can create a package or a shipment from, and this is the one that we had created in Zoho Books. I was looking at this one, but it's actually this one. So from here, I can go over to create package, and then I can say package slip. It's 11111, and then I can save that. I can add some notes if I want to. And now there's a package created. And if I was in the warehouse, right, and I was dealing with materials that we're sending to people, typically what will happen is the sales orders will come through. I'll have the sales orders. I'll turn the sales orders into packages, because there could be multiple packages. Again, this is why there has to be a different record from sales order to package. There could be multiple packages for one sales order. That is something that could happen. We're making it simple in this scenario, but oftentimes these things get really complicated. And then from here, I need to actually ship this package. So the truck comes, it's ready for our packages. Now I need to create a shipment record. So I can either ship this thing manually, or I can ship via a carrier. Okay. So I'm going to ship it manually. Let's say I've got my own trucks that I use to ship things over, and I'll do my shipment order here, and I could add a tracking number if I want to. By the way, this is a key thing. If I have a carrier and their tracking number, I can integrate this so I'm getting updates on when things are shipped, delivered. I can get those tracking updates similar to if you buy something on Amazon, you can track the updates of where it's gone. You can get that same kind of tracking within Zoho inventory. That's one of the really powerful things here with it. So now that we've got the sales orders turned into a package, we can go over to packages, and here we go. Here's the package. It's not shipped yet. Then I can move it over to shipped, a shipped package. And then once it's delivered, I can get that notification showing that it's delivered. So if I integrate this with a carrier, I can mark it as delivered. Or if I ship it manually after the driver drops something off in the location, they can mark it as delivered here too. Okay, so you can mark as delivered, and there's some other options there that you can look through. So I'm going to hit mark as delivered here, proceed. And the nice thing here is we've now gone through this whole flow: sales order, invoice, payment. We've also gone through sales order, packages, and shipments. I know this seems like a lot, and for a lot of you, it's going to be like, I don't need every single one of these things. That's okay. I wish I was right there to sit and tell you what's relevant, but you're going to be able to translate this to your own efforts. Now we're going to go over the purchase order flow and billing, and then we'll talk a little bit about bank, and we'll wrap up this quick overview, and we'll go over things in more detail. Last thing here in inventory before we jump back into Zoho Books: when you're tracking inventory, you need to worry about two things. There's physical stock, there's accounting stock. This isn't relevant to you. You can skip past this part. But with accounting stock, that will deduct how many items you have based on your finance records, like your invoices or your sales orders or your purchase order. Because if you create a sales order, someone's now committed to taking that stock out of your warehouse. Why is that helpful? Well, if you get lots of sales orders, either you're doing e-commerce, or in this example, you have lots of customers who want one kind of item, you need to keep track of who has agreed to take those items, purchases, even though they haven't physically left the warehouse yet. That will allow you to not overcommit stock to different sales and then have this situation where you're like, hey, I know I said that would be shipped in another couple days, but we actually overcommitted all of our stock, and now we're out of stock until we can purchase more. And then you have a purchase order, which means you're telling a vendor or someone else you want to buy something from them. And so that's how much stock they've committed to sending to you. Okay, so that's accounting stock. But then you have physical stock, is when goods or material actually comes into a warehouse or a location where you're storing things. Okay, so I just want to differentiate those things. If you don't know all the ins and outs of inventory tracking, that's completely fine. But I just want to show you that can be done here in Zoho inventory. It's very robust. It can track physical stock and accounting. Big difference there. Physical stock is what's actually physically been in the warehouse at this moment. Accounting stock is what you've committed to sending people and what other people have committed to sending you. Okay, that's the line in the sand there. So with that, we're going to go over to purchase orders, which is if you need to buy things from other people. Okay, so within Zoho Books, you have the sales side, but then we have the purchases side. Okay, which is what we're getting from other people. And that's where you have vendors. A vendor, if you don't know, is just an organization or person that you're buying things from in order to run your organization / business. So that's what a vendor is. It's basically the account for accounts are people who are buying from you within a Zoho Books context. But you can create, technically, a customer could also sell you something, right? So you could create a duplicate for both within vendor and accounts. So you have vendors here. And then you have expenses, which are things that you have you've paid. And then you have bills, which are things you will pay for. And then you have purchase orders, which is saying, hey, this is something I'm sending to you. And once you agree on it, once I send you the purchase order, then I am going to purchase it from you. But it's basically you saying, hey, I have a relationship with you. I understand how much something's going to cost from you. And I want you to, at this price, I want to make sure we agree on it. It's an official record. And then we can convert it into a bill, which is something that I will pay later. Okay, so that's a purchase order that converts over to bills, and it's basically the opposite of a sales order. Sales order, what someone purchased from you. Purchase order is what you're going to buy from a vendor, and then create a bill based on it. Okay, now we have expenses as well. I talked a little bit about that. Those are bills you will pay, expenses you have paid. And then with your bank, you can hook up your bank, and you can do that by going over to banking. And then you can connect your bank / credit card. This is very useful because once you connect your bank, you can see here your transactions will start to come in. And when your transactions start to come in, then you can do reconciliation. And reconciliation, so here's a key integration, linking your bank accounts. Reconciliation is just saying, hey, these are the transactions that the bank actually has. Does this match your system? Okay. Because if you're going to do cash-based accounting, you can just do it based on transactions. If you're going to do accrual-based accounting, then you need to make sure that your records in Zoho Books matches the transactions in your bank. Okay. So that is the quick and dirty of why you need your bank set up. It's very useful to do that, and you should get that set up so that it's tracking and bringing in your transactions automatically. And then you can also import your bank statements as well. So if you're not able to connect your bank here, if you hit connect your bank and you're not seeing an option there, or for your credit card, you can also just add your own. You can add your own manually, and then you can add different. You can add your transactions manually as well. Okay, and that brings me to chart of accounts. You can set up your chart of accounts here to make sure that it reflects your needs. From an accounting perspective, there's quite a bit here within reporting as well. So there's a bunch of out-of-box reports that you're going to want, like profit and loss, cash flow statement, balance sheet, etc. That's all available here. Then if you have more advanced reporting needs, you can get into Zoho Analytics. And Zoho Analytics, if you don't know, it's a very robust reporting tool where you can connect your Zoho CRM data, your Zoho marketing data, your Zoho Books data, string it all together and make whatever reports that you want. So that's a quick overview of Zoho Books. Now we're going to slow things down and go into more detail within Zoho Books so you know how to better set it up and use it. We're going to go over the front end of Zoho Books and all the record types. Now this is what it looks like if you go into Zoho Books as a standalone application. And this is what Zoho Books looks like if you're inside of Zoho One. So we're going to stick with this interface, but pretty much everything is the same. It's very, very similar. So starting off the homepage, this is where you can get a quick overview of what's going on from a total receivables. That's what people should be paying you. And total payables, what you should be paying out to other people, such as vendors or companies. So this is your cash flow, income and expenses. You can see there's a bunch of reports right here. So that's the nice thing about the dashboard. Let's talk about items. So items are the things that you're going to sell. So if you go to new, you can create a good or service. A good is a product. A service is something that you do for somebody, right? So you can switch between goods and services, add information. You can see the basic information that's here. You can also add custom fields to collect different data points that aren't available here. Okay, so just know you can do custom fields as well. So that's items. Then we have inventory adjustments. Okay, so if you hook up Zoho Inventory, this is going to be really important, where you can add adjustments to your inventory through these different records. So there's some information you could read up on the specifics and the details surrounding inventory adjustment, but this is something you can add as well. If you're not managing inventory, don't worry about that at all. You don't have to go into it. Then you've got sales. Okay, so sales, what you're selling, it kind of works from top to bottom in this section, right? So you've got customers. These are obviously the people or companies that you are selling to. Some interesting things about this: when you go to create one, you can start as a business or an individual, right? So some of you aren't selling to businesses. That's okay. If you're doing B2B, you'll want to select a business as the customer type, and then you'll want to select individual if you're doing B2C, right? But you can do both. You can have businesses and individuals. When you have businesses here, you add the primary contact, and then you can go over to contact persons and add additional people, right? So that's the nice thing when you go to business. You can go to contact persons and add multiple contact persons right here. Also, just so that you are aware, I'll show you very, very quickly, there is a very tight integration with Zoho CRM. So if you go to Zoho Apps here, you'll notice I have the Zoho CRM integration set up. And so accounts and customers are synced. Vendors are synced, and products and items are synced. Okay, so this is really critical. You want to make sure that all of these modules are synced up. That way, if you are using Zoho CRM, it's only relevant if you're using Zoho CRM, accounts and customers are synced, contacts are synced with customers, and all of your transaction data is also flowing to the CRM. So most people in Zoho Books are also using Zoho CRM. That's why I mentioned that. Quotes. Quotes is the record type to represent what you told someone something would cost. Now, an estimate is a little different. It's saying this is what I think will cost. A quote is what it will cost. And sometimes you got to adjust quotes, and that's okay, but that's what it represents. So you can create a quote here. you'll notice that you need items to sell in order to create quotes. So when I click on items here, I can add a new item, or I can add a new row and add additional items here, change the quantity, the rate, that will change all the totals and whatnot. In the quote, after you create it, you can have a template. I'll show you here. If I click here, you can see PDF print. You can make a PDF, but you can see this is the template showing the quote, and I can change this template to make it look the way that I want. That is customizable, and I can also add additional fields here on the quote if I want to as well. So it's really, really nice. Then also I can send it via email to somebody so they can review the quote. And I've got sales orders. A sales order is what someone has committed to buying. Okay, so a quote is, hey, send me a quote, let me review it. Once I approve it, then it turns into an order. That means, hey, I actually want to buy this thing. So a sales order represents what someone is committed to purchasing, okay? And here you can see it looks very similar when we go to actually create a sales order to the quote. Here's the better thing, right? Within a quote, you can just go here to convert, and I've already converted this specific quote over to a sales order, but I'll just create one really quickly to show you. Do quantity 2 here, or 12, that works. And I'll just select American Fork City, and I'll save and send. You can see here's a little email template going over the information for the quote. And then you can see I can put convert to invoice, or I can put convert to sales order. Okay, here we're showing convert to invoice only, right? Because I'd already converted it to a sales order. But the nice thing is when you hit convert to sales order, you'll notice this. It automatically, instead of making you fill out additional information, please note that only an accepted quote. We'll have to make this accepted really quickly. Mark is sent. We actually want to take it a step further, and then we want to mark as accepted. Then we can convert to a sales order, and you'll notice that all the information pre-fills for me. So I don't have to refill the information out every time something happens. I can just press that button and convert it over, okay? And then I can save and send this over if I'd like to. Here's the template for the sales order. It's not as pretty, but there you go. By the way, some of you, if someone's like, I just want to order it, send me the order information, you can just create a sales order. You can skip quotes, okay? You don't have to use every single one of these record types if you don't want to. You only should use it if it's relevant to your workflow, okay? Then you've got invoices. And invoices are the record type that represents what someone needs to pay. So for example, a sales order could potentially have 2 invoices, right? Half upfront, half later. Maybe you have different payment terms like paying on milestones or whatever. That's okay. The sales order is the master record tracking what someone committed to buying. And then you can create multiple installments of payments, okay? So you can convert this to an invoice if you want to. And once you convert to an invoice, you can say, actually, this is partial. We're just going to have them pay for 6 of the quantity of 12, right? And then if you save this, save and send, and then we won't send this, here's the template for the invoice. You'll notice that's been partially invoiced, okay? Partially invoiced, or I can do a full invoice. It just depends on how I want to do it. But that's the sales order, and now you can see an invoice has been created based on that, and it's in draft status. And then I can send the invoice. I can just mark as sent. And the reason you can do mark as sent is some people don't want to receive an invoice or a sales order or a quote via email. You could print it. You could potentially print it and send it to someone, right? That's why there's the option to just manually put mark as sent. Then you have recurring invoices. And if you don't know what a recurring invoice is, it's just it's the record that represent what someone needs to pay, but you can have it create on a recurring basis. So you could set it to every week, you send an invoice, every month, every quarter, you're sending invoices. So that's really nice with recurring invoices. That's the unique thing that you're able to do. You do start on, end on, and then do it on a weekly, monthly, whatever cadence you want. You can even do something custom too, which is really neat. So that's nice about recurring invoices. Some of you might be thinking, hey, but could I have somebody sign up as if it was a subscription? Okay. They put in their details and it just auto bills them. Yes, Zoho has an app for that. It's called Zoho Billings. So while it is not in Zoho Books natively, you can hook it up to Zoho Billings, and that is something that I can do. I'll see if I can just show it to you right now. Here's Zoho Billings. It used to be called Zoho Subscription. So that is possible. Just so you're aware, you know how this says finance right here? Finance apps are share the same storage. So that's not true for all the Zoho apps, but it is for the finance app. So if you're in Zoho 1, let's say, for example, you're using Zoho Books, Zoho Inventory, and Zoho Billings, great. It shares the same customers database. It shares the same storage engine for a lot of these things, which is awesome. You'll want that. Okay, so what happens when you send out an invoice? You get payments, hopefully, right? These payment records, payments received, can be logged underneath a invoice for payment. What's nice about this too is you can actually send out an invoice, not to make this more complicated than it needs to be, but when you send out an invoice, you can mark it for partial payments. So someone could potentially make 2 payments on a partially invoiced sales order. Just know that's possible. Why is that worth mentioning? Well, Zoho Books is very robust. It could handle many different situations like that. So just be aware of that. You can see payment received for a certain invoice. How was it paid? Via bank transfer. Okay, so that could be really important. You can also add credit notes. Here's the life cycle of a credit note. So product returned, order canceled, they get a credit note. You can give them a refund or give them credits and apply that to future invoices. So credit notes are a thing within Zoho Books as well. Let's go over purchases. Okay, so this is accounts receivable, right? The money that you're receiving, the money that people owe you, the money that you're generating. Then your purchases, the money that's going out, more likely than not, if you're in a business and you're paying other people, you want to keep track of it. Those are vendors. People you're paying are vendors. So vendors and customers are separate modules, okay? And potentially an account that buys from you is an account you could buy things from, right? So if someone buys something from you, that's a customer, right? They're giving you money. If you're giving other people money, that's a vendor. So they could be the same, but they are separate records and separate databases within Zoho Books. So just be aware of that. Here's vendor. It's a pretty similar form. You can add contact persons just like that, but it's a different side of the house from an accounting perspective. Now you're getting into accounts payable, what you got to pay other people. Expenses. So the big thing in between expenses and bills, I get a lot of confusion around this. Expenses are things that you paid, and then bills are things you need to pay, right? So you can add expenses here, and then Zoho's got an expense tracking software as well. But you can just use Zoho Books for expenses if you want it to be a little more robust. Okay, so you can record an expense. You can fill out this information. Again, you can add custom things here if you want to. But it's very nifty, very useful. There you go for expenses. You got recurring expenses, just like recurring invoices. Expenses are the things that you pay for on a recurring basis. So if you want to set a recurring expense because you know it's fixed, it's going to happen every X period, whether it be a month, a week, or whatever it is, you can add it right here and then save it. You got purchase orders. This is a sales order, but for accounts payable. It's your commitment to purchase something from somebody else. So you got a purchase order, you can send it out to somebody. You can see the purchase order here is issued, and then you can convert it to a bill because then it's something that you will be paying for. There are one or more purchase orders, purchase receipt record for this purchase order. Yeah, this is just a demo record, but you get the idea. You can convert it over to a bill, which is very, very useful. You got bills. These are things you will pay for, okay? So when you purchase items, record the bill, record partial payment, record payment. I mean, some things you're committed to buying, and you're going to have to break it up into multiple bills, whatever it might be. You can create the bill here, which is very, very useful. Just so you know, for all these records, you can import these. You don't have to create them all from scratch. Just wanted to give you an overview of all the record types here. But you can certainly upload bills, import bills, and do the same for customers, vendors, quotes, sales orders, invoices, all of these record types. You can just import these or integrate it with another system. You can do that as well. Create, set, repeat, create recurring bill. So if you want to create a bill that you know you want on your list to pay on a recurring basis, you can also create recurring bills. Then there's payments made. Within a bill, you may make 1 or 2 payments. Great. You can add these. You can add payments that you've made right here. Then you got vendor credits, and you can add credits and apply it to future bills to discount what you're paying for. Time tracking, if you're billing by the hour for time and materials, then you'll want to keep track of projects. This also integrates with Zoho projects. Zoho Books integrates with Zoho projects. And so when you create these different projects, within the project that you've created, you can log time against it, add expenses, add invoices. It's very useful here, along with timesheets. Timesheets being the time that you've logged for the work that you've done for somebody, right? So if you're billing by the hour or you're billing for time and materials, you are going to want to use this time tracking section. It's very helpful. Banking, super important. You're going to connect with your bank and you need to do reconciliation. And this isn't the case if you're doing cash-based accounting versus accrual-based accounting. So if you don't know, cash-based accounting is when the source of truth for what you're paying in taxes is going to be at the transaction level within your bank statement. So that's what you would need to send over to a CPA in order for them to determine how much you owe in taxes, as an example. And then you have accrual. Okay, so I just described cash-based accounting. Then you have accrual-based accounting, which is the source of truth for what you owe in taxes is actually going to be your accounting system. Okay. And so a lot of smaller organizations, they're going to do cash-based accounting, but people graduate oftentimes to accrual when they have to report to investors, when they want to raise capital. And accrual-based accounting is adheres to generally accepted accounting principles or GAAP, and cash-based accounting doesn't, because it doesn't give people a full picture. Now, if you're a small org, and you're doing cash-based accounting, usually you can get away with that. But if you are doing accrual, that's where you really have to be on top of these records to give an accurate picture of where you're at financially in your organization. Okay, so why am I describing this? Well, with banking, if you're going to do accrual-based accounting, what you need to be able to do is reconciliation, which is basically saying, hey, this is what our bank is saying has come in and out of the organization. Does this match our records for our different invoices and our payments received? Does this match the money going out of the organization, the expenses? Does this match the different purchases or payments that we've made? Okay, so that's why I bring that up. Reconciliation is great. I'll just describe it really quickly what banking does. It imports, if you have your bank listed here, it will automatically import your bank statements in your transactions. And then it will say, we're not finding a matched transaction. You can click a button and you can do reconciliation that way, which is really useful. Okay. Filing and compliance, you can generate 1099 forms effortlessly. So you can map accounts to Form 1099 boxes, validate the vendors. You do a lot there with Form 1099. Accountant, okay? So you can give accountant access to Zoho Books at no additional cost if you're on Zoho One. And I believe if you just have Zoho Books as a standalone application, you can do this as well. But essentially what this allows you to do is add an accountant at no additional cost. You just have to go to support@zohobooks.com, I believe. You can check on the email there, but you can add accountant, okay? And when you add an accountant, they can add manual journal entries. That's just their way of adjusting the book so that it matches what we're seeing in our when you do reconciliation, which is making sure your records match the records from bank statements. You got bulk updates here, which is really nice. So you can do bulk updates to invoices, credit notes, purchase orders, and you can bulk updates these accounts, which is really, really useful. Currency adjustments, chart of accounts. Now, to update your chart of accounts depends on your organization and your organization needs. This just allows you to zoom in to what money you're spending and what money is coming into the organization. And you can see these account type. These are expenses. These are liabilities, cash. You need to set this up so that you are able to properly analyze your organization from an accounting perspective. Now, if you're doing accrual, this is a must-have in order to match these. And for cash-based accounting, it can be useful as well. You can set budgets here and stay on top of your budgets for certain areas of the organization or the business. And transaction locking, you can basically transaction locking, I can just read this to you. Transaction locking prevents you and your users from making any changes to transactions that might affect your accounts. So basically you're just saying, hey, these things we're going to lock down so that people can't change the transaction records that we're creating because they could mess with reporting and things like that. We don't want to allow people to cook the books, right? So that's what transaction locking is for. Then we have reports, right? So I'm just going to show you right here. Once you click into reports, it kind of changes the interface a bit, right? Now it kind of collapses everything there on the left-hand side. You can still access it, but that's the little user interface change. Now we got really valuable reports here like P&Ls. You need to be able to analyze a P&L statement over a certain period of time. You can do that out of the box, cash flow statement, balance sheet, business performance, cash flow forecasting, and much more. All these valuable reports. Now, oftentimes people ask me for very custom reports. And here's the thing, Zoho Books reporting can do a lot, but oftentimes you'll outgrow Zoho Books reporting and you'll need something custom. This happens a lot, especially as organizations grow. And you can use Zoho Analytics. You can see here, advanced financial analytics for Zoho Books. You can use this for more advanced reporting. And the quick of it is, when you bring your Zoho Books data into Zoho Analytics, you can pretty much do anything in the way of reporting, okay? So it just allows you more flexibility and it's more robust. You can also use SQL. That's basically a way of bringing tables together, tables of information, like think of like spreadsheets, bringing multiple together in a way that makes sense for the reports and dashboards you want to create, okay? So basically what I'm saying is, if you don't see a report here that you want, you can usually do it in Zoho Analytics. Documents. So these are different documents you can upload. You can auto scan in order to get financial information into Zoho Books. So that's the nice thing about that. You have bank statements you can auto upload in Zoho Books, and then it can analyze your bank statement and then add it to your bank, which we talked about earlier, if you remember. Here's the banking. We can add to the right bank. You just need to set it up to do that. But yeah, if you go to documents and bank statements, that's what you can do with bank statements, and you can auto forward them over, which is really, really neat. Here's a Zoho Mail option, Gmail, and then Outlook. Okay, so we've got Zoho Payroll. So if you're needing to pay people that work for you, you can do that with Zoho Payroll, which is extremely exciting. Now it supports all 50 states. A lot of people have been waiting for this. Very useful to get Zoho Payroll set up. It's a separate application, but it's related. Then Zoho Payments. So if you want to use other solutions like Stripe or other payment processors, great, but Zoho Payments is also an option. Here's what they charge. It's pretty similar to what everyone else is charging. You can set it up and just have it all native to Zoho. So with that, that is the front end of Zoho and the different record types and what they mean. And with that, we will get into different things that you can do to set up Zoho according to best practices. Welcome to the Zoho Books setup checklist. If you want to make sure that Zoho Books is set up according to best practices, you're going to want to watch these sections within this video. So let's start off with banking. You want to make sure that your bank is set up with Zoho Books. You can automatically pull your transaction records into Zoho Books. It's a best practice. It'll save you time instead of exporting and importing bank statements manually, which you can also do through documents. But if you can do it automatically, then why not, right? So go into banking, connect bank, and then you can go and select a bank that you want to connect. Go to proceed. It's going to have you log in. There's different bank feed service providers that pass this information over to you. Yodlee, Token, Plaid. You can also go through this interface in order to connect, and then your bank statements will come over, and that is how you connect your bank. You're especially going to want to do this if you're doing accrual-based accounting and you want to reconcile the records, your bank transaction records or your bank statement records with the records that you keep within Zoho Books. If you want to bring over data that you have on a spreadsheet or maybe from QuickBooks or another system, and you want to bring it into Zoho Books, you're going to want to watch this section. So how do you bring your information over? Well, you can go into, for example, the customers. You can go over to import customers, and they'll give you a sample CSV that you can download to see what format your info needs to be in before you can bring it into Zoho Books. Now, this process is what we refer to as data normalization. It's bringing information that's maybe on a spreadsheet or that you've exported from QuickBooks or another accounting platform and making it Zoho Books database ready. And this process can be very difficult. It can be as simple as importing a customer spreadsheet, and it takes 20 seconds to just import it. You export it and import it, and you're done. It can be as complex as dozens of hours of work to prepare the data and to bring it over. Okay, so recently, just as an example, I had a client who wanted to bring over customers, quotes, sales orders, invoices, and vendors, and purchase orders, and many other records. Okay. And that's fine. You can do that. It's just a little more work because what makes it tricky is, just as an example, a quote. If you look at a quote is a couple different records. It's got information for the customer, which is a separate record, as information unique to the quote. It has line items, which are seen as its own record in a way, or a sub record. And then within a line item, you're looking to the item, which is a separate record as well. So it gets pretty complicated pretty fast. And what I ended up doing for my client who wanted to do that, their data was super messy. I brought all their raw data into Zoho Analytics. And then this is just an example, by the way. This isn't what I use to transform their data. This is just an example. I used SQL to string together their data in a way that made it Zoho Books database ready. So what I'm trying to show you is there's a spectrum of how difficult it is to bring in your data into Zoho Books. So at its most advanced, you'd want to use something like Zoho Analytics or a BI tool to make the data from messy to Zoho Books ready. And that can also be as simple as just importing your customers. But if you want to bring over all your data, it can be a little tricky. Also, just another note on that, if you want to quickly bring over your data into Zoho Analytics, just for reference, like you want all your legacy data, what you can do is you can go to Add Data Sources, and then you'll notice here that QuickBooks Online and Desktop are options for data sources. There's other accounting systems too. Xero, here's another one, and there's I think one more. But you can also use FreshBooks. You can bring in your finance data here, prepare it with an automatic feed, a semi-live feed. I think it's 1 hour is the sync delay, 1 or 3 hours. But the reason I'm showing you this is that's what it takes to bring your data into Zoho Books. You can import it. If you have to do multiple imports, that's oftentimes required to migrate from one system, either a system of spreadsheets or a system like QuickBooks, over to Zoho Books. If you want to make sure that people can pay you once you send them an invoice, through the invoice, you want to hook up your payment processor. And if you want to make sure that you can pay other people, you want to hook up an integration with vendor payments. So I'm going to show you how that all works. If you go to settings, then you go over to online payments, you're going to see customer payments and vendor payments. So let's start with customer payments. This means when you send an invoice, you want to be able to collect the payment through the invoice, which is really convenient, makes things much easier within Zoho Books. Credit debit card, you can use Zoho Payments. This is the preferred gateway, of course. Zoho's providing it, right? Oftentimes people will hook up Stripe as well. So you can see all these different payment gateways to kind of hide it there. Stripe, CSG Forte, Square, a lot of different items there. Okay. And then you can see the fees for each of these as well. So you can see 2.9% plus 30 cents per successful transaction. You can see it's the exact same for Zoho Payments. Okay. So if you want to collect card payments, ACH direct debit, that's supported through Zoho Payments is the preferred gateway. And then a lot of people use Stripe. Just so you guys know, I use Stripe. That's before they had Zoho Payments. That's why I had it set up. I've just never moved over. So I don't have a problem with Zoho Payments. Clients that I work with have Zoho Payments, but that's just something to be aware of. So that's how people can pay via credit card, debit card, ACH payments. Zoho Payments supports that. You can look at other payment gateways too. And you have PayPal, Ideal. These are many different ways that you can collect customer payments, which is awesome. Then you've got vendor payments, right? So CSG Forte is a payment platform that integrates with your apps and allows you to make and receive payments. Okay, so if you want to make payments to a vendor, you can set up CSG Forte. Really useful if you want to be able to pay your bills to your vendors, right? They can get set up and then you can pay them, which is really nice. So that's CSG Forte. And that makes your life much easier when it comes to managing and sending payments. So that is customer payments and vendor payments so that you can make it easier to receive money and then send money out to your vendors. If you want to make sure that people have the right level of access to Zoho Books, you're going to need to go over to settings and then roles. And roles just determines what someone's able to see and what someone's able to do within Zoho Books. So you can see here that these are the 4 out-of-box roles that Zoho Books creates. If you want to make your own, you can go to clone one of them, or you can just go over to new role. But this is something I can't do for you. If I was sitting with you and you were telling me, hey, look, these are all of the different kinds of people who are going to use the system, then I could make the roles with you for you. But you're going to have to dictate what kind of roles exist for your organization if you're doing this yourself. And you can see here that these are the different modules or record types, and then what people are able to do within them. Okay. So what's really useful about this is you can determine if someone has full access, they can view, create, edit, delete, there's more permissions here for communication, void invoices. There's so much you can do to limit or to provide access to different specific users or user groups within Zoho. So you're going to want to make sure that you configure this so that people don't have Wild West access where everyone could potentially go in and delete everything in your organization. You don't want to allow those kinds of things to happen, right? You want to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. And this is the way that you prepare for the worst, is not giving everyone full unrestricted access to Zoho Books by going to roles and configuring them properly. If you want to make sure that Zoho Books is set up according to best practices and best accounting principles, you're going to want to head over to Accountant and then go over to Chart of Accounts. Now, when you set up your chart of accounts, it's going to depend very much on the needs of your organization and your business. So when you go over here, you can see that you can create new accounts if you want to, or you can take advantage of a lot of these out-of-box accounts that Zoho sets up for you. Now, how you set this up is very critical because it's going to affect certain reports. So you're going to need to make sure that you set those all up appropriately. The nice thing about setting up your chart of accounts is once you do, you can zoom into the financials of your organization in a way that's helpful when it comes to reporting and to accounting in general. So make sure that you set up your chart of accounts, go to a CPA, and make sure that you set it up according to best practices for your organization. If you want to track packages and their associated shipments, then you're going to want to set up this integration with carriers. Now, this is a Zoho Books tutorial, but I'm going to take you over to Zoho Inventory. So yes, I'm cheating just a little bit here, but I don't care because for those of you that this is going to be helpful for, I think it's worth taking just a minute. For those of you who are like, yeah, this has nothing to do with me and my organization, we don't ship anything, we don't need to track anything, then don't worry about it. You can skip past this. So go to Zoho Inventory. And if you have Zoho One, you're already paying for Zoho Inventory. You're already paying for Zoho Books, so you have access to this. Or you can get these as standalone applications. So I'm going to go over to settings, and then I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm going to go over to shipping, okay, within integrations. And here you have AfterShip, UPS. You can integrate directly with carriers. And then you have like these carrier go-betweens, right? So AfterShip connects with Zoho Inventory and automates the tracking process for manual shipments. So if you want to hook these up, then in the same way you go to Amazon, you buy something, and then you go look at your order and it says shipped, delivered, gives you different updates. This does that for you, right? So these carriers, they have APIs, which are systems that tell you when things have gone through different milestones of the shipping process. So if you want to track those, set them up here. You can use Easy Post, any of these options to make sure that you're tracking shipments and shipment updates within Zoho. If you want to make sure that Zoho is set up according to best practices, you need to understand not only the front end of Zoho, which is this first page that you initially land on, you need to understand all of the settings, okay? And each of these settings allow you to do different things within Zoho. So we're going to go through each of them together. So we've got organization, we've got profile. So if you want to set up your profile here, this allows you to set things up like your organization name, your business type, industry. It's just the general information for your organization. So as a best practice, go through here and you can upload your logo for the org and set up that basic info. Then you've got branding. So you can make it dark, you can make it light. This changes the appearance of Zoho. And then you can change the accent color, which is really cool as well. Zoho is, as an organization, I feel like has made a big push towards their user interface or their design and your ability to customize it. So you can take advantage of that and customize the front end. Then you've got a custom domain. So if you want, you can map to a custom domain. And that's pretty nifty, kind of a cool feature that Zoho offers. You got locations, so you can add different locations to further organize your Zoho Books account. You can see here, add location, and you can add it as a business location or as a warehouse only location, okay? So warehouses lets you, if you're dealing with materials and you got to store materials and whatnot, warehouses are going to be a thing for you. And then if you have different locations in the business, that's going to be important for you to track as well, right? So that's a newer feature at the very least at the time of this recording. Okay, then you can manage your subscription, which is your subscription that you're paying to get access to Zoho Books. Then you've got users and roles. By the way, just as a quick thing, when you go into settings, you're going to notice that it's in this nice interface from left to right. It takes up the whole screen. Once you click into a specific part of settings, then it's all in these sidebar menu, and that's what we're going to stay with for the rest of this section. So just know that's why it changes, okay? So initially when you go close settings and then jump back in, it's going to be in this beautiful layout with some colors and stuff. Then when you click into it, then it's going to be in these collapsible sections on a sidebar on the left. Okay, that's just how the design works. So users, you can add different users, you can invite different users, you can export the users that you do have. Here's a little video on how to add them, but it's pretty simple. You're going to hit invite. I'm in Zoho 1, so it's going to take me to the Zoho 1 interface, but it is, depending on your subscription, it might have you do something different, okay? So if you're just in Zoho Books, you'll be able to fill out a form right there. Really nice though, when you go to invite user, it takes you to Zoho 1 instead of giving you a runaround and explaining it. Then you have roles. We talked about this a little bit earlier if you watched other sections of this video, but you can add new roles based on what you want to allow people to access and do within the organization. So you have these out-of-box ones that you can use, or if you want to clone them and change them, or if you just want to start from scratch and go over to a new role, you can certainly do that. It controls what people have access to and what they're able to do with the information they have access to. Then you've got user preferences. So if you want, you can add different fields. And if you go to new custom field, it will allow you to add a new label and a data type. Very useful to be able to add that different field customizations there. You've got taxes and compliance. So if you want to enable sales tax, if that's something that you're required to do in your organization, you can integrate with Avalara. That's recommended, especially if you sell in multiple states. So set up Avalara, connect it to Zoho Books, and you'll be good to go there. Setup and configurations, general here. This allows you to enable certain records that are otherwise invisible in Zoho Books. So for example, I enabled sales orders and purchase orders in order to see those record types. I could also do sales receipts and retainer invoices. I could do all of that right here. Just so you know, when it's selected, I'll show you right now how things look. We don't see sales receipts right now, right? So if I jump out of here and I go to sales, there's no sales receipts, right? We're not seeing a record type called sales receipts. However, if I jump back into settings and then I go over to general and I hit sales receipts and save right here. Now, if I go back, it's going to refresh, close settings. What do we see now? Sales receipts. Okay. So if you want, and the reason this is worth going over is sales orders doesn't appear out of the box. So if you need to track like physical shipments, that's going to be important for you. You're going to need to go into general and hit purchase orders, sales orders, if that is relevant to your organization. That's what makes this difficult. Oftentimes doing these videos is I don't know what's relevant to your organization unless I analyze it first. So what we do in consulting is we have a deep discovery to see what is worth flipping on, because there's a million things you can do in Zoho, none of which are worth doing unless it's relevant to your business, best business practices and processes or goals that you have for Zoho. Okay. So it's not worth turning this all on unless it's useful to you. Okay. So just a quick side note there. What you're going to need to flip on and off in these settings depends on your processes, your needs, and your goals. Okay. So here we have currencies. You can set up different currencies, which is useful there. If you're selling in different currencies, this can be really useful for you. You've got opening balances for different accounts. So if you want to set the opening balances there, then you can do that once you move over to Zoho from another system. And then you can import those opening balances as well for the different accounts that you connect to Zoho Books. Then you've got these reminders. These reminders are helpful so that people get reminders for overdue invoices. You can set the cadence for the reminders there. So when you send an invoice, Zoho's doing work for you. It's reminding people to pay, things like that. You can see there's a reminder 1, 2, 3 cadence right here, and you can add as many as you want. Customer portal. If you don't already know, you can give your customers access to Zoho so they can see their own record, right? So they can see the transactions that they have. And I'll take a step back with you really quickly. You got 3 options for portals when it comes to Zoho. You have the in-app portals. So for example, this is what we're looking at right now, customer portal. The app is offering this portal to us. You then have Zoho Creator, which allows you to pull information from Zoho Books, and it allows a more dynamic experience for your customer. That's the most advanced way of creating a portal, and it allows you the most flexibility to show somebody what you want to show them within the portal, okay? Because the way Zoho Books customer portal works, it's very locked, the interface, and what you're able to show is very locked. It's not super flexible. And then you have, as a third option with portals, you have Z portals. And that's just something to consider. It's a third party to Zoho, but it integrates many of the portals together. So usually people will use the in-app portal at first. That's totally fine to start with. But then their clients will say, I also want to see my CRM records. I also want to see my records from this app and this app. And that's where you'll start to look at Zoho Creator as Z portals to bring that information into one environment and present it all at once. Because basically what you don't want to do is, if someone has CRM records and Zoho Books records, you don't want to say, here's an access to two things. And then they're like, I want access to my Zoho Desk records, all my tickets. You're like, that's a third portal and set of credentials to give your client or customer. And that can be super overwhelming. So that's where you would want to graduate from a simple in-app portal to something like Zoho Creator or Z portals as an option as well. And you can check those out. Just wanted to give you a quick side note there. Customer portal, you can choose what they have access to. You still have some ability to change what they have access to. It's just not nearly as flexible as, let's say, Zoho Creator and Z portals. Then you have a vendor portal. So for those of your vendors that you're buying material or services from, goods as well, you can also give them a portal so that they can see what purchase orders you've submitted and all the records associated to their vendor, okay, which is really, really useful. You've got customization. So what we talked about is more configuration, changing how Zoho, setting up the settings for how Zoho is going to work. And then you have customization, which is usually how you want to see information, okay? So transaction number series, you can change how the transaction, whether it's an invoice or whatnot. I'll show you, this is a new series here. You can change the prefix for it for a credit note, purchase order, and then the starting number. So this just allows you to keep track of the unique identifier and where it starts. Why would you want to do this? Well, maybe you just start an organization and you don't want the first invoice to show 1 to your customer. And they're like, whoa, am I the first person paying? Maybe you want to start at 1,000. Maybe you're bringing over information from another system and you want it to start at the last number from your previous system. So if you sent 300 invoices in your last system, maybe you want to start this at 300, right? Or 301, and then save that. So this just allows you to start the transaction number at the place that you want. You got PDF templates. This allows you to change how the PDFs are showing up when you send them over to your client for payment or for confirmation on a quote, payment of an invoice, etc. So you can change how these look. You can put your brand on them. You can see it's got an example one right there for Zilker. You can change it to your own. There's a lot you can do there. Email notifications. This is where you can change the emails that you're sending for certain things. So if you want customer notifications, quote notifications, you can change how these different emails look. So you'll notice when I go into edit here, I can change exactly what this email template looks like when I send out an email saying, hey, here's the quote, confirm it, or hey, here's the invoice you need to pay. You can change exactly what it says here. Very useful to be able to do that. You just go into edit and boom, you can change exactly what those emails look like. Very, very useful. Reporting tags, if you want to create reporting tags to further organize your reports, you can certainly do that. Add a tag name and then the different options for the tag, and that will show up for you. So you can tag different things within Zoho Books. Web tabs. A web tab is your way of getting a window into a different website or URL from Zoho. Okay, so the web tabs will just add to the side, and it's very useful, especially if you have like a report in Zoho Analytics you want to bring in and view within Zoho. This can be very useful for that. So that's web tabs. You got automation workflow rules. Let's talk about workflow rules. It's really just, you've probably used a workflow builder before, right? So it's like a when, if, then. When something happens, if this criteria is met, then we want to trigger a certain workflow rule. So I'll just show you very quickly what this would look like for a quote. Maybe when quotes go out or are created, see, you can see submitted, approved. Let's just do created here. then you can set the if criteria. So the when is the when a quote is created. The if, the condition, would be if maybe you could set it up to be whatever you'd like, but based on a field equaling a value, or if the currency is not in USD or something, then you could, I'll just do a random one here so we can get through this. I'll just do no. If is optional in every workflow, by the way, so you could just trigger it every single time a quote is created. And you have immediate actions that you can trigger. So you have email alerts. You can send out an email, webhooks. You can connect to another system, custom functions. You can use Deluge, which is basically like JavaScript for Zoho to pass the information anywhere you want, trigger other automations. You have build updates, in-app notifications. It's really the possibilities for what you can do here with workflow rules is truly endless. So a lot you can do there. It's very, very capable. Workflow actions. So you notice when we went into workflow rules, right? I'll pull this up really quick again just to show you. You'll notice there's this section. We go to created and then hit no here for actions. So I save this, and then we've got immediate actions, time-based actions. So I can do it immediately when the workflow triggers, or maybe after a week or something, right? So I can select the execution time after. I'm going really fast here, but I want to make sure we can go over everything. So the type here, you see how there's different action types, workflow action types, custom functions, field, email alerts. You're going to notice that same thing when we go over to workflow actions, email alerts, in-app notifications, field updates, webhooks, custom functions. You can create those here in preparation for the workflow rule that you're making, right? So if you want to create that custom function, you can go right here, demo, quote, proceed, and then you can go ahead and create the script that you want for the custom function, okay? Using Deluge. If you don't know Deluge, it's JavaScript for Zoho, basically. It's their own custom language that works within Zoho. It's really, really neat. It's easier than JavaScript if you're looking to learn it, though. Workflow logs. These are different records showing you the different workflows that have triggered, their status, and things like that. I don't have any to show you here. This is a demo account, but essentially you can look through all the different times these have fired or worked, and then you can check on how it went. Schedules. If you want to set a schedule, you can say, hey, every week I want you to pull all of the invoices and send me an update saying what invoices are paid and unpaid, something like that. That's where you would use schedules. So instead of triggering it based on an event-based trigger, you could do it on a weekly or scheduled-based trigger for automations. Okay, so that was the automation section. I'm going to click out of here, and we're going to move over to general, customers, and vendors. So this is where you can change, you can enable customer numbers, vendor numbers, default customer type, business or individual. So if you're doing B2C, you're going to want to switch it over to individual. If you're doing B2B, you're going to want to keep it at business for that initial default customer type. Then you have the customer billing and vendor billing address format and the shipping address format. A lot you can do there to change. You can add different fields for field customization of both customer and vendors, add custom buttons, related lists. There's a lot you can do there. Then you've got these different items. Now, items is what you're selling, right? So you can allow duplicate item names if you want to. Enhanced item search, enabling this option makes it easier to find items using relevant keywords in any order. So you can select that. It's really, really useful when you're looking for items. You got price lists. You can enable price lists. This just enables you to change the rate of an item for in certain transactions based on certain criteria. And then many other options here between field customization, record locking, custom buttons. This allows you to add a button to the item record. If you click it, you can trigger a custom function, things like that, custom functionality that you create. You've got revenue recognition. This is how you want to recognize revenue on an accrual basis. So you'll want to check out revenue recognition there. It's basically saying, for example, with accrual-based accounting, instead of you saying we want to recognize the revenue once it's paid, you want to recognize the revenue once you initiate an invoice, right? So that's kind of the basis of accrual-based accounting, right? Recognizing revenue on initiation as opposed to when money changes hands. Then you've got accountant, bunch of options here for accounting. Make accountant code mandatory for new accounts, enter unique accounting code. There's so many different options here. Journal validation rules. You can bring your accountant into this and make sure that they're set up for success right there. Then you've got projects. If you remember earlier on the front end here, if we jump over, we're looking at this section here for projects. If we go over to time tracking, we have projects and timesheets. This section, if you want to control the settings there, is controlled when we jump over to these sections here. Let me jump back over to it. Inventory, customization, workflow rules, general, inventory, projects right here. So this is what we're controlling. So we've got projects and timesheet. So we've got projects and timesheet. And the project here is just your way of changing the field customization, adding different buttons here. And then of course you can add related lists. So if you want to add a custom related list, you can pull information from another place and then add it into the project. That way, when you actually go into a project here and then click into a project record, you can see on the side information that's relevant to the project. So that's just a way to make it more robust. It's a pretty advanced feature, but I just want you to know Zoho Books is a very advanced product. It can do a lot of advanced things if you configure it to do so. Okay, so that's something to be aware of. Let's jump back into timesheets here. And then this allows you to change some of the settings for timesheets. So don't round. You can round up to, you can round down to different timesheets that are added. So if you spend, 49 minutes doing something, you could round up to the hour or something like that if you wanted to. Tracks costs for time entries, timesheet approvals, enable approvals for time entries, enable customer approvals for time entries, things like that, right? So this is useful if you're billing on a time and materials basis. You're going to want to make sure you set up projects and timesheets. You got inventory adjustments. If you want to add no approval, simple approval, multi-level approval, so multiple people approving different inventory adjustments, because that can affect your inventory quite drastically. You got build customizations too. Online payments, you got the customer payments, which is you configuring your payment processor so that you can take payment via credit card, ACH direct deposit right from an invoice for your customers. Really useful. Customer payments, you're trying to get money easier, you're going to want to set this stuff up. It's very useful to allow multiple ways or methods of payment from your customers. Then vendor, if you want to pay your vendors easier, you can use CSG Forte. That's something to check out. Okay, let's go through these sales records. So you'll notice that each of these sales records here control on the front end one of these records that we're seeing here, and they're different fields and whatnot. So very useful to go into these and set up approvals. In general, allow editing of accepted quotes. Don't convert accepted quotes automatically. A lot here for you to look through to configure. There are approvals, different fields you want to add if you want to collect custom data points that don't exist as pre-built fields. You can add your own field to capture the data that you need. Validation rules, record locking, custom buttons, related lists, all available here within quotes. And then the same thing for all these other records, right? So it's pretty much the same as far as the structure. You got the general settings, approvals, field customizations, etc. for every single one of these. So if you want to add a custom field to one of these, you're going to want to go into this section, and then you go to field customization and do what you need to do there. You've also got delivery notes, packing slips. This is more for those of you who are handling inventory, right? That's going to be useful for you. But you don't need to show those things if it's not useful to you. And you can change that in your settings too by going over to these different settings. And I remember now it's going over to general, and then you can switch those, which is useful, right? So you can turn these on and off based on what's relevant to you and your organization. Okay, so with that, we're going to go now over to purchases, go to expenses, pretty similar to what we saw on the sales side, right? Each of the sales records. And then you can change what fields exist there. You can add some custom ones. There's some preferences there for you setting up mileage rates, vehicles, custom buttons, related list, and then same thing throughout these other records, right? Very similar structure here at the top. You can add approvals for these, whatever you need to do to make sure that Zoho works the way that you need to within these records. You can do so in these sections. Then you got custom modules. If you want to track records that you are not seeing a record type for out of the box, then go to custom modules. By the way, when it comes to going custom, I like to use what's out of the box first, maybe look at an extension next, then go custom modules and custom functions, okay? use what's out of the box as much as you can before you go custom, because once you go custom, there's a cost for maintenance and using those custom functionalities versus using what's out of the box. Also, you don't want to rebuild from scratch what's already existing. Okay, so a lot of you already know that, but if you don't already know, it's good to have that that advice from someone who's built many of these systems. Don't go immediately custom. A lot of super technical people will do that because they think themselves, oh, I can create a custom module for that. Well, use what's out of the box first before you build it custom and then work against the system, because there's things you have to pay for down the line for that, like maintenance and then cost to develop it initially, which isn't the way to go. So introducing custom modules, you can create a module here, module name. Think when you hear modules, just think different record type. Okay, so let's say sales order didn't exist. It does, but let's say it didn't. You could add sales order as a custom module in Zoho Books, and you could add it to Zoho Inventory too. Those are tightly connected apps. Okay, extension and developer data, integrations in Marketplace. You got different Zoho apps that integrate with Zoho Books. So highly recommend you set up these integrations between the apps that you use. The two most popular that I see is Zoho CRM integrated with Zoho Books and Zoho Projects. You got 1099 filing. So if you want to make it easier to file your 1099s, you can use these two different options here. You got WhatsApp. So if you're a big WhatsApp user, internationally, I'm based here in the United States, but internationally, WhatsApp is one of the main ways of communication. Great. You can hook it up with Zoho Books, which is great. You got SMS integrations. So with Twilio, if you want to send SMS notifications for transactions, payments, whatever it might be, you can certainly do that. Other applications that integrate with Zoho out of the box, great. Don't build these integrations from scratch when you can just connect them right here. It's so much easier. Marketplace, people build extensions all the time for the Zoho ecosystem. Over 130 million people use Zoho, or at least Zoho says they have 130 million users, which seems right. If you go over to new extension, you can create your own, and you can also search through the extensions that exist, which is great. And then you have developer data, incoming webhooks, connections. Webhooks is just your way of allowing people to post messages to a URL and give you information. So you can have incoming webhooks that way. You can set up connections with different applications. And then API usage. API, if you don't know, it stands for Application Programming Interface. It just means that your app can talk to other apps. Now, API usage is saying we're not giving you unlimited access to talk to other apps. So we're going to give you 10,000 credits, which means you can talk to an app like 10,000 times. Okay, so that's generally how this works. You can look at more of the specifics if you need to, and you can purchase API add-ons if you have advanced integration needs. You've got signals here. You can create signals to notify your users within Zoho Books. If you want to add a new signal for something specific, you could have an incoming webhook, trigger a signal, something like that, in order to notify people within Zoho Books. You got data management, which just allows you to back up your data so that if anything were to happen, you have a backup of the information captured in Zoho Books, because it's so critical that you have that. Really nice security blanket here to have backup. Deluge components. This is showing your usage for Deluge. Deluge, again, is the Zoho JavaScript-like language for passing data around. So in this demo, it's not going to show, but if I was using in this demo different Deluge scripts and whatnot, and different components here, you would see the usage logs there. Then you got web forms. So if you want to collect data using a web form, you can create web forms here. You can do demo just to show you, and you can do a custom module and collect information from that form. So we'll just do demo here just to show you what this looks like. And then we can do demo as a label, and then it creates a form. So you probably created forms before. It's not something that is new to you, but there you go. Here's demos, and you can create a form to collect information based on that. We'll go to next here. And then there you go. That is your way of creating forms. And now I have a public form that I can send out to people. Here we go. Looks really nice. And then that information will populate Zoho Books. So if you got custom forms and you want to be able to do something like that, very useful to be able to create forms there. So those are all the settings within Zoho Books. I wanted to go through those with you so that you understand how to properly configure and customize the system according to your needs. This is the Zoho Books mobile app. We're going to go through the whole thing together so that you understand how powerful it is to have this on the go. Now, if you want to get Zoho Books on your phone or on your device, you can head over to the Apple Store, the Apple App Store, in order to grab the app, or you can go to the Google Play Store to get the app as well. Okay, so how do you use this thing? Well, you get access to the homepage, very similar to what you see on the desktop version. You can see your total receivables at the top left, total payables there, overdue invoices, overdue bills, just the urgent stuff. You can also quick create records. So if you want to create an invoice there, you can do that. If you want to go back to the homepage, create a customer, you can add a contact, a business or an individual contact, expenses, quotes. You can see your cash flow. By the way, I use this homepage every single day internally for my own business just to see these invoices that I've sent out, when they're paid, when they're not paid, things like that. What's very useful is after this homepage, you can go over to individual record types and see the records within them. So customers as an example, invoices, and you can customize this yourself. So if you go to more at the bottom right there, and then you go to customize, you can swap what of these icons show up at the bottom, which allows you to access different records quickly. So the bottom menu, you get 4 options. So if you want to switch that with invoices, which is what I had before, or if you're like items is more important for me, whatever it might be, you can click, drag them, and change that. So really nice interface for changing how the mobile app works. Really like the customization feature. This is a top tier feature. I go over to more, I can see my banking information. So I want to connect a different account here. I can go there and connect with my bank for real-time feeds, which is great. I can see the different items in my organization or in Zoho Books. Then I can create additional items here too. So not only can you reference information, you can create records within Zoho Books from the mobile app. And then it works really similar for all the other record types, right? So I can click into sales orders, I can see all that information. So this is great for accessing Zoho Books on the go. So I just showed you a couple of those records, quotes, sales orders, payments received, things like that. You can also see purchases, your vendors, your expenses, and then you can get into time tracking, projects, timesheets, timer. It doesn't show the Zoho inventory stuff, but if you go over to Zoho apps, you're going to see Zoho inventory is another app. I have it installed. You can check that out as well. But look at these finance apps that you have on the go: Zoho Invoice, Zoho Billing, which used to be called Zoho Subscriptions, Zoho Inventory, Zoho Expense. So much you can do here to access Zoho on the go. You can even see a custom module, which we created earlier. If you've been watching this video from end to end, we created this demos module. It was just to demonstrate that you could create custom modules. That's accessible here too. Really neat stuff. Support and feedback. You can give your own, you can give support. You can get support and offer feedback to Zoho so they can improve the application and much more. You have documents here where you can upload your documents, financial records. You have different reports you can view here, like your balance sheet, your profit and loss. This is all accessible on the go. You can even download it from here as well. So if you want to download it from the app, that is doable as well. It's certainly available. So we're going to go over some of the settings, then we're going to wrap up for the Zoho Books mobile application overview. Organized profile, all those settings we went over within the desktop app. A lot of this you can access here within the mobile app. Okay, so all of these are accessible here. You can set up many of the features in the settings within the back end of the Zoho Books mobile application. Very robust, must have if you're going to use Zoho Books. You got to get the mobile application so you can use Zoho Books on the go.